All right, let's talk about what happens after a case has been at the Supreme Court. So now is when the judges do the important work that is going to create precedent and last long, long, long after they are gone. Here is our old friend Ruth Bader Ginsburg hanging out in her office. She was doing some work here, writing some opinions. So let's look at what types of opinions we have. All right, so first let's look at the process of writing opinions for the court. So they've had the oral arguments. After the oral arguments, the judges are going to vote. They're going to go back in conference and they're going to vote on the results. So they will see how the judges lean, who's sided with the plaintiff and who's sided with the defendant. The Chief Justice is going to assign one person from the majority to write the opinion. That's the only one that has to be written. So they're going to write their opinion, which is going to explain why they decided what they decided, and they're going to try to convince the other people on the court to sign on to their opinion. If there are people that have issues, like they disagree or they think the written opinion didn't make a lot of sense, or they just want to say something else, then they may decide to write dissenting or concurring opinion. And judges, like any of the 9 judges, they can sign on to any of the majority, concurring, or dissenting opinions that are going around. So here in the picture, we see Justice Elena Kagan signing on to an opinion with Chief Justice Roberts right there. All right, the main opinion that we care about is what we call the majority opinion. Now, this is where one justice who is on the side with the most votes, they're going to write the explanation saying this is what the court decided and this is why we decided that way. Now, this majority opinion is going to serve as a precedent. So similar situations in the future when like lower courts are looking at a specific situation, they're going to have to follow the precedent set by the Supreme Court. So the justice that is writing this opinion, they're going to have to explain their constitutional reasons. So what they do is, here's what we decided, here's what the Constitution says, and that's why we made this decision. So after they've written their opinion, they're going to give it to the other justices and try to get them to sign it. And they'll also try to persuade them. They'll try to talk them into it. Like if a judge says, I really don't agree with this, but if you added something here or there, then I would sign on. So they might change it a little bit to get more support. These other 2 opinions don't have to happen, but if a judge feels strongly enough, they can choose to write a different opinion. So first we'd have a dissenting opinion. A judge who is on the side with the fewest votes may decide to write a dissent. They will explain why the majority is incorrect. So they'll give different constitutional reasons. They're also going to circulate what they wrote, and they're going to try to get the other justices to sign on here. Now, the dissent doesn't mean much for the one particular case, but the dissent gives important legal arguments for other cases in the future. So like in other situations that come up, lawyers might call to arguments that were in a dissenting opinion from a judge as backup for why they argue that way. All right, the other type of opinion here is for a judge who agrees with the majority, but they just have some thoughts that they want to add. This is called a concurring opinion. They concur, they agree. So anybody can write a concurring opinion. They're not assigned this or anything, but if they feel strongly, they're going to explain why they agreed with the decision, but they might not have agreed with the arguments that were written in the majority opinion. So they want to offer different reasons for why they decided this way. So they are agreeing, but giving you a different reason why they agree. The concurring opinion, like the dissenting opinion, doesn't mean a ton for that particular case, but it provides important legal arguments for court cases in the future. All right, now we want to spend a little bit of time talking about today's Supreme Court. You need to understand the political situation that today's court is in. So here we see today's Supreme Court. This is their official photo that they take at the beginning of every term. Now, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you see just to the right. She's the smallest one. They're all in the same size chair somehow. But she passed away after the term began. So new Justice Amy Coney Barrett, you see her sneaking up in the corner there. She has yet to take an official photo with the Supreme Court yet. But this is today's Supreme Court, and we're going to look at the makeup of the court. All right, so the court currently, after Amy Coney Barrett has been added to the court, we have a court that has 2/3 of its justices are conservative judges. So there's a 6-3 advantage for conservatives on the Supreme Court. John Roberts, who had been among the conservative bloc for 15 years now, he's now considered the most moderate judge. That does not mean that he has become more moderate, but he is the most moderate of the conservative judges that are there. We also, this is silly, but we have more younger judges than older judges. Now, Supreme Court young means we're talking about you're in your 50s and your 60s instead of your 80s and your 90s. But we do have more younger judges than older judges. So a lot of the judges on the court now will be there for a long time. We have 3 women on the Supreme Court. It's been that way for a while. We have, Amy Coney Barrett replaced Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but 3 women is the most women that have ever served on the court at one time. Currently, the justices make $250,000 a year. Very important. Their salary cannot be decreased. It can go up because, like, if you're on the court for 30 years and everyone else keeps getting a raise but you, that would be pretty sad. But they make $250,000 a year, and Chief Justice John Roberts makes a little more than that. All right, here is today's court, and we're going to talk a little bit about each judge and how old they are. And this is as of 2021. So what will happen here, we're going to go through them. This is how they're seated, too. Now, I had to put Amy Coney Barrett's head on Ruth Bader Ginsburg's body until we have an official photo here. So they're not actually sitting the way that they will always sit, because they sit by seniority. The Chief Justice always in the middle, and then the people who have been on the court longest on either side of him. So there'll be a little shuffling here. But right there in the middle, we have Chief Justice John Roberts. He was appointed by George W. Bush in 2005. He was appointed as a very young judge, so he's going to be on the court possibly for a very long time. But he's 64 years old now. He's a George W. Bush appointee. To the left of him, we see Associate Justice Clarence Thomas. He is the person who has been on the court the longest now. He was added to the court in 1991. He was appointed by George W. Bush's dad, George H.W. Bush. So he is our oldest, not our oldest, but our longest serving member on the court, and he is 72 years old. To the left of him is now our oldest justice. This is Stephen Breyer. He was appointed by Bill Clinton. He's 82, so he is likely to retire under President Joe Biden, because he would, as a Democratic appointee, he's one of the more liberal judges. He would like to see a more liberal president choose his replacement. All right, go all the way over there to the far right, and that is Justice Samuel Alito. And Justice Alito was named by George W. Bush. Him and John Roberts came on the court at the same time. Justice Alito is 70 years old, and so those are our 2 George W. Bush judges, Chief Justice Roberts and Associate Justice Alito. Back, and the second one from the left is Associate Justice Sonia Sotomayor. She was Barack Obama's first addition to the Supreme Court. She was our first Hispanic justice to ever make it to the Supreme Court. She is 66 years old, so still one of our younger judges here. And just to the right of her is Obama's other appointee, Associate Justice Elena Kagan. So she is 60 years old. And so those are the 2 Obama judges. In the back row on the left is the first Trump appointee. This is Justice Neil Gorsuch. Trump has been very good about picking young judges, so they'll be on the court for a long time here. So Justice Gorsuch is 53, and he's been on the court for 4 years now. And over on the far right is Associate Justice Brett Kavanaugh. He had a very controversial hearing before he was voted on, but he was approved by the Senate. And so he is 55 years old, another pretty young judge by President Trump. And then down there where I put her head on Ginsburg's body is our newest justice, Amy Coney Barrett. She is 48 years old, so she's very young for the Supreme Court. And those are the 3 Trump justices. All right, so just a little more about the makeup of the court. now. This is just important that we understand who our judges are and where they come from, because they make the most important decisions for all of us. These are strange things. These are not reflective of the United States of America. 6 of the justices on the court say that they are Catholic. Another one was raised Catholic. So we have 7 justices from a Catholic background. And the other 2 justices are Jewish. Now, that is not at all reflective of the religious population of the United States, where the largest religious group in the United States would be Protestant Christian, and another very, very large group that's quickly becoming the second largest group are non-religious. So this is important because this means that the Catholic religious ideas have a lot of influence on the Supreme Court when it's making decisions, because this is the people's background, right? You can't forget about what your background is when you're making decisions and all that stuff. The other thing that is not at all reflective of the United States of America, before Amy Coney Barrett was added to the court, they were all from Harvard or Yale. And that's not at all like the United States of America. So Amy Coney Barrett graduated from Rhodes here in Memphis, and then from Notre Dame Law School. So she's the only one not from Harvard or Yale, but that's really strange for all of our decision makers to be from Harvard or Yale. Like I said, your book says that geography used to be a big concern, and really they don't pay attention to geography anymore. So a majority of the justices are from the Northeast. There's, I think, 4 from New York, 1 from New Jersey. And so the majority of the court coming from northeastern states, which is pretty crazy. And then, the most obvious of them all is that the court is more than 3/4 white and is 2/3 male, which it is the most diverse Supreme Court that we've ever had, but it's just still not very diverse. So we don't have a ton of diverse voices on the court. Now, it is important for you guys to understand the political makeup of the court and how it has changed over the last 4 years, because this is a real battle point between our 2 parties. And so we'll see what happens in the future here, but this is how things have developed over the last 4 years. So this is what it looked like in 2016. Over on the left, we had what we called the liberal bloc. There's Sotomayor, Ginsburg, Kagan, and Breyer. They are the liberal bloc. They almost always vote together. Over on the right, you have the conservative bloc. That is Roberts, Thomas, Alito, and Scalia. And they are conservative. They almost always vote together. In the middle, we have Justice Anthony Kennedy. He's what we call a swing judge. That means he would vote, sometimes he would vote with the conservatives and sometimes he would vote with the liberals. And so he would decide many of the cases. Anytime a case was decided 5-4, it was usually his vote that was the most important. Now, this was a pretty stable court because there's 4 consistent liberals and 4 consistent conservatives. And so swing judge has a lot of power, but this court was seen as very legitimate by, both sides, by liberals and conservatives and all that. In the very beginning of 2016, Antonin Scalia died unexpectedly, and so there was an opening. Barack Obama still had a year to go in his presidency. So what has happened with every other judicial nomination in the history of our country, Obama made the nomination, and everyone expected the Senate to hear it out, vote on it, and all that. But the Senate refused to pay attention to Obama's nomination. Now, here's what Obama had to deal with. He was a Democratic president, and the Senate was controlled by Republicans. So Obama had to, what we said earlier, he had to compromise. So he did not pick a very, very liberal judge. He did not pick, he picked someone who was in the middle, a moderate person. So he picked a judge named Merrick Garland. And because this person was moderate and had been approved overwhelmingly by Republicans before for his promotion to the circuit courts, Obama thought that this would be a compromise with the Senate, and the Republicans in the Senate refused to even vote on Obama's nominee. So this was a really crazy step in the politicization of the Supreme Court nominations here. So this is something that we're still fighting a lot about today with every judge appointee since. So 2017, Trump became president. That seat sat empty for a year, and Trump became president. and Trump picked Neil Gorsuch. So you see him added into the background there. Neil Gorsuch is more conservative than Justice Roberts. And so the balance of the court here, even though the Senate had done something remarkable and unexpected and unprecedented, the balance of the court was pretty much the same. So there's still 4 solid liberals, 4 solid conservatives, and Anthony Kennedy right there as the swing judge in the middle. 2018 rolls around, and Anthony Kennedy has decided it's time to retire. So he's the swing judge. So his replacement is going to be very, very critical in the balance of the court here. Now, Trump's president, the Republicans control the Senate, so the conservatives already have the majority here, since Kennedy he was appointed by a Republican president and voted with conservatives more than the liberals. But if Trump is able to replace Kennedy with a solid conservative, then this is a huge shift in the makeup of the court. And that's exactly what happened. Trump nominated Brett Kavanaugh to fill Kennedy's seat. Brett Kavanaugh, a very conservative justice. So Kavanaugh, now there are 5 solid conservatives and 4 solid liberals. Now, Roberts has by default become the swing judge. His opinion on things has not changed, but he is the swing judge because he is the one that is most likely of those 5 to ever vote with the liberals. And so he has a couple times. It becomes pretty high profile, and this has become a big change in the court. So now there's 5 solid conservatives and 4 liberals, and the only chance of the liberals winning a case is convincing Roberts to come over to their side. So the court is now much more conservative as of 2018 because Kennedy was replaced by Kavanaugh. All right, so leading up to the 2020 election, there was another surprise death. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she died 5 weeks before the presidential election here. So this gave Trump another chance to shift the court, because here he's going to get to replace a liberal judge with a conservative judge, and there's already a conservative majority on the court. Now, of course, we'd already talked about how Republicans in the Senate refused to allow President Obama to appoint a judge for an entire year, because their argument was that you do not replace judges in an election year. But here, 5 weeks before the presidential election, the Republicans in the Senate allowed President Trump to shift the balance of the court for a long, long time. So Ginsburg being replaced with a solid conservative will dramatically change the political balance of the court. All right, and so there, Amy Coney Barrett was added to the court. Trump appointed Amy Coney Barrett to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So now the liberal bloc is down to 3. The conservative bloc is up to 5, really 6 solid conservatives, but Roberts has become a little more moderate, specifically under Trump. As Chief Justice, what he cares the most about is the legitimacy of the court. This is going to go down in history as the Roberts Court. His name is on it. So he has been most likely to vote with the opposite bloc, especially when it comes to limiting President Trump and things like that. Now, for the liberals to win in the Supreme Court, they have to win over the support of Chief Justice Roberts and one of the solid conservatives. And so it is going to be rare that the liberals come out ahead in the Supreme Court in the near future. Now, the way the Senate has handled the Supreme Court in the last few years is causing a little bit of problem with the public, and we'll see if anything changes in the future here. But Supreme Court confirmations are becoming way more partisan than they used to be. Scalia, that we mentioned at the beginning, he was one of the most conservative people on the court, but he was unanimously approved by the Senate. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, one of the most liberal justices on the court, she was approved 96-3. Over time, this has become more partisan. You see, with Sotomayor, it gets a lot closer at 68-31. With Kagan, it was 63-37. And then with Trump's judges, now this is due to the partisanship of the parties and as protest for the Republicans in the Senate not hearing Obama's nominee. Trump's 3 justices have been narrowly approved, 50s to 40s for all of them. So the senators they're making this vote more and more about political party, which that's one of the things the court itself tries to stay away from. Also, the senators that are approving the judges are beginning to represent an increasingly smaller proportion of voters. So what's happening is we're having the senators, mostly from the small states, picking or controlling which judges get on the court, and they're losing the support of the public. So the court is the branch of government that is least controlled by voters, but its legitimacy is important, and it risks losing its legitimacy with the public. And what you see in the chart here, we have gray lines and black lines, and this is just showing us the judicial appointments recently. The gray line represents the percent of voters represented by the votes in Congress, and the black line represents the votes of the opposition. So you see the Ginsburg on the left there, she was 96-3, so overwhelming support of the senators and their states and the votes from their state. Over time, though, what we have seen is that the justices being added to the court are being approved by a majority of the Senate that is representing an increasingly smaller minority of the population of the country. So this is one of the things the Supreme Court is dealing with in terms of its relationship with the public. The public is very critical of the Supreme Court at the moment. The public does not really feel like the Supreme Court does not feel that they have any control over the Supreme Court, and that's how it was designed. So we'll see what happens with the court in the future. All right, time to take a look at our big ideas, all the big things we talked about today. We had a long one today. We had a lot to get through talking about the Supreme Court. Main things for us to understand, we need to make sure that we can explain what makes the Supreme Court independent. All right, the Supreme Court's independence is very important. That's why it's able to make the right decision, not the popular decision. So we need to explain what is it that allows the court to be that way. We need to describe the process of issuing a writ of certiorari. Don't forget the rule of 4 involved in all that. We need to describe those factors that the president will consider when they nominate a judge for the Supreme Court. And you need to make sure that you can compare the different written opinions of the court. All right, that's it for the Supreme Court. We are, of course, not done with the court. We've got a lot more to talk about the court's history, and we'll end up going through a lot of important decisions for the Supreme Court, but we have at least understood how the court operates and a lot of the processes involved with the court.